Welcome into Beyond the Press Box. I'm Yash alongside me, my co-host and analyst, Cody Emerson and Will Hatzel. Zach Kallman couldn't make it tonight, but we have Cody and Will here with us. And get ready to hear some great discussions and debates on the biggest storylines in sports. We cover topics ranging from the NFL, the NBA, MLB, college football, and college basketball. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the roundtable discussion between four friends who are passionate sports fans. Before we begin our show, we do want to let you know that through our partnership with the Unhinged Sports Network, we've partnered with Fubo TV. What is Fubo TV, you may ask? Fubo TV brings you 100 plus channels, including CBS, NBC, Fox, ESPN, and many more without the hassle of a cable contract. Don't believe me? Click the link in our social media bios and start your 7-day free trial today. Fellas, the big news this past week, a big reveal, you could say, was the 2021 NFL schedule was released. So before we dive deep into, the depths of the schedule itself, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the schedule release and kind of, go through each of our teams' schedules and kind of break down our favorite team schedules. Cody, you being with the New England Patriots, Will with the Chicago Bears, and my Tennessee Titans. So just want to get your thoughts overall on the schedule release.
Well, finding out about the schedule last week was pretty interesting because you would have thought it was the NFL free agency because of all the leaks to the schedule. They were leaking week one. They were leaking some of the primetime games and whatnot, which it was pretty cool to see and not have to wait all the way until the evening when ESPN and NFL Network were going to do their schedule reveal show. So I was happy with finding out earlier in the afternoon. I look when it comes with the Bears, I am excited. It is a heck of a schedule. It should be entertaining. And if they can get their stuff together and have a decent team this year, which I think they can. I don't know how good they could be. I think some people think the Bears have more holes to their roster than they really do. I think the question is can these guys that they've acquired play, whether these guys are from the draft, the young kids, or some of the guys they signed in free agency. If that happens, if this is a competitive football team, it's going to be a pretty entertaining year. I mean, they have a handful of primetime games. They start the season in Los Angeles against the Rams, Sunday Night Football, of course, against a familiar face and Matthew Stafford, his first game with the Rams. He obviously knows the Bears pretty well after being the quarterback for the Lions for so long. I was, when we were talking about this earlier, guys, before the podcast, if I feel comfortable with any part of the schedule, I guess it's maybe the first like 7 or 8 games in terms of, okay, the Rams, that's going to be a challenging game, but it's kind of a toss up because Matthew Stafford's also is a great quarterback, but he's always known for making some dumb decisions and throwing some interceptions, and the Bears have been recipients of some of those mistakes before. So it wouldn't surprise me if you see a couple of those, and it's his first game. So he's got to get acquainted with his new teammates, the new system they run over there. Then they come home against Cincinnati. Joe Burrow, that's a young up and coming team too, but I don't think they're going to be that much of a threat this year. So Cincinnati could be the first or second win for the team. Then they go to Cleveland. That's a toss up. Cleveland's good, but early on in the season when you're finding your footing, that might be the ideal time for the Bears to play them. Then their first game against a division rival comes into play at home against the Lions. That I think will be a winnable game. Jared Goff is going to be a decent replacement, but I have to see what the rest of this Lions team looks like before I'm worried about them. The Bears, if they didn't choke away the second half of their second meeting at Soldier Field, the Bears should have beat them twice last year. The Las Vegas Raiders, they've dismantled their offensive line completely. I think the Raiders are an easy opponent. The Packers at home at Soldier Field, that's probably the ideal time for the Bears to beat them if they're going to go and do a 50-50 split, which is probably best case scenario if Aaron Rodgers is still in uniform there. And then you got Tampa, then you got San Francisco, then you got Pittsburgh. It gets a little challenging there. I think San Francisco and Pittsburgh are both beatable. Tampa's going to be pretty tough. And then you have your bye. That's one of the unique things about this, and this is the first year of the 17-game schedule, mind you, that a lot of bye weeks, and I know Codey and Yash, you could attest to this with your teams and some of the other schedules that we've noticed and talked about before recording the podcast. But yeah, the Bears play 10 games before they get, a bye week. So they play a little over half of their schedule. And then that second half of the schedule after the bye is really tough. Ravens, Lions, Cardinals, Packers again at Lambeau. Then you have the Vikings. Then you have Seattle. Then you have the Giants. And then you have the Vikings again. The classic. It seems like every year the Bears end their season against the Minnesota Vikings. And that's going to be crucial there. Those last 5 games of the season, 3 out of those 5 were against NFC North rivals. Again, one against the Packers, and it's going to be real tough at Lambeau in December. It's going to be cold, frigid. Ground's going to be hard as a rock. Might be snowing. And then again, 2 games against Minnesota. So this is a tough schedule for the Bears, and they have the 3rd hardest schedule based off of their opponents' combined 2020 win percentage. Their opponents combined for 55% of their schedule they won. So that's going to be pretty tough, I think. And I expect to see, again, the Cardinals to be even better than what they were last year, and they were pretty solid last year. We already know what Tampa Bay is. We know what Baltimore is. Again, the Rams still may be a question mark. You also have the Browns, who, again, expect to see some of these teams that were good last year. I expect to see them be even better. There's not really any games here, I would say, that are easy wins other than maybe Cincinnati. The Raiders gave us a hard time last time, but if they don't have an offensive line, the Bears defense and Khalil Mack should be able to eat them up. So outside of that, maybe the 49ers, maybe the Steelers, if Big Ben is completely washed. I'm not saying it's going to be the Giants at the end of the season. I don't know how good they're going to be this year. Bottom line is, this is a tough schedule for the Bears, fellas. And I tell you what, it'll be interesting to see when Justin Fields gets into play here, because I know a lot of people, as soon as the schedule came out, were like, get him in there. Let's get him in the prime time. He's ready to go. The Bears just started OTAs a few days ago. He's already turning heads. He's already making a connection with rookie wide receiver Daz Newsome out of North Carolina. The hype train is already building up, and it kind of makes you wonder. And again, especially since it's a tough schedule, can Andy Dalton find a way to keep this team competitive and win some games? Because if they don't win ball games, yeah, you may see Justin Fields play within a few weeks or at some point this season. And I'm just going to be honest. I think they're going to put him in at some point. I don't think this schedule bodes well for Andy Dalton to make them be a playoff team. And again, I think the Bears are trying to contend for the playoffs. Potentially jobs are on the line with, the coaching staff, the front office. So they are going to be, the Bears have always come off as this way. They believe they're a playoff team. I know Zach and I point fun at them for making the playoffs in an easy way last year, but look, the Bears have made the playoffs twice in the last 3 years, even if the play has been mediocre. We'll have to see what happens. I think Justin Fields, maybe not this year, but a schedule like this with Justin Fields down the road might bode well, better down the road for the Bears this year. I'm not going to put super high expectations that they're going to make the playoffs or anything, but I'm excited just to know that hopefully if the Bears could put a decent product on the field, literally almost every game of the schedule should be fun to watch and really have playoff implications, especially the second half of the season after the bye, when 3 out of your last 5 games are against Minnesota and Green Bay to battle for the NFC North crown. Technically, you could say 5 out of the last 8 if you want to push it back to late November, where they play the Lions one more time. So a very fun, entertaining schedule. And if Justin Fields gets out there, he's going to have a chance for some primetime games and some big games against NFC North rivals pretty early. So all in all, I'm pretty hyped for this schedule, guys. Like I said, I just hope the Bears get a good product on the field, so they're at least competitive and fun games to watch, even if they don't win them all.
Will percentage guess of Justin, I don't know, because they talked about this, I think, on Get Up one morning. I think it was as soon as the schedule was released. Chance he starts week 1, and if he does, hello, welcome to the NFL. Here's Aaron Donald.
Yeah, exactly. If I had to give you a percentage, I'm personally going to say 50-50 because I really don't think if he has a great camp and he outperforms Dalton, and I think he's at least going to outperform Nick Foles at this point. He seems to be the odd man out. I truly think it's a 50-50 shot because I don't see Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy again with supposedly their jobs maybe being on the line for them to risk many games with Andy Dalton if Justin Fields is ready to go. And the reporters that have been at OTAs so far have said that he's looked amazing. Again, it's OTAs. We got to see how training camp and preseason goes, but I think there's a better chance than people think, but it still wouldn't surprise me if Andy gets the shot at least the first couple of games. Could be a Mitch Trubisky thing where Mike London played for a couple of games. Once he was trashed and we knew we didn't have a chance with him, they put in Mitch. So, but I think Justin Fields is a entirely different beast compared to Mitch Trubisky. He probably can play week one. It's just, do the Bears want to push him into the deep end right away?
And like you said, he's been turning heads. I've been following Bears social media, Instagram, their Twitter. It's they have videos of him in those OTAs practices, and it's some of those throws really phenomenal throws. And like you said, with Daz Newsome, and I know he's been working with the offensive line a little bit too. Tevin Jenkins, the new lineman there that you guys drafted in that second round from Oklahoma State. So really good to see Fields making those connections with his teammates, in really just going straight from the college game, right? Just feeling seamlessly into the NFL game, because we know, as we've said before, those two games are separate. The college game versus the NFL game. But it seems that Fields is the way it's looking right now. It's a seamless transition for him into the NFL world. But
Yes, love to see it.
yeah, Cody knows all about Justin Fields, definitely. But
Yes, sir.
how about your Patriots, Cody? What do you make of their schedule?
Yeah, there's a stretch here which I'll get to in just a second. That kind of concerns me. Not gonna lie, but it's but Will and the Bears kind of have. I don't think it's as severe as the Chicago Bears situation, but as Cam is still projected to be the starter week one. That's all from everything that I've heard. So it's looking like Cam's going to be the guy. I don't think there's any real rush to throw Mac Jones into the fire quite yet. I mean, we did re-sign Cam on a 1-year deal. We surrounded him with a ton of weapons. Still, I'm not 100% confident in the wide receivers, but we 2 tight end sets. I think Patriots could go back to running the ball a lot more. But let's get to the schedule. The Dolphins, week 1. You call me overly optimistic. You can call me whatever. I think the Patriots win that game. I'm not a Tua fan. I don't really like what I saw from him last year. Look, they go out, and I understand they added Will Fuller and I about said Devontae Smith, but Jalen Waddle. Those guys are deep threats without a doubt. But that's my problem with that. That's not where Tua excels. Tua is not he doesn't have the arm of a Patrick Mahomes type guy. Well, that's a horrible comparison. No one really has the arm of Patrick Mahomes. But you get what I'm talking about. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. So adding pieces around him are nice, but you got to kind of fit to where of how he plays, and that's more of the short to intermediate route. So I think the Patriots they're at home week 1 against Miami. I think they can win there. We go to the Jets, start back-to-back games with division rivals, and the good old adage, you know how Bill Belichick is against rookie quarterbacks. He is going to give Zach Wilson, he's going to make his life a living hell. and that's kind of a welcome to the NFL. I don't know who the Jets play week 1, but if he doesn't get brought back down, if he has a good game in week 1, I think he's going to get brought back down to reality in week 2. The Jets still are not that good of a football team. They added Corey Davis from your Titans, Yash, and I think a handful of others but they still don't have a bona fide number 1 receiver. So I'm confident in the Patriots to start out the year 2-0. Now here's where some toss-ups come into play. Week 3, we welcome the Houday Nation from the New Orleans Saints. That is a major toss-up game. If Jameis is starting at quarterback, I couldn't tell you who wins that game. If Taysom Hill is starting at quarterback, I can feel confident in the Patriots saying I think they could win. But if Jameis, it all depends on which Jameis Winston shows up. If it's the Jameis Winston that threw 30 interceptions, I can say that the Patriots should win that game. But if it's a Jameis Winston that can, put up monster numbers and he limits the interceptions, Saints could come out with a win there. So I'm going to say that's a toss-up. Then the much anticipated rematch, or not rematch, return home. I know we're going to dive into this a little more as we wrap up the NFL segment, but I can't go through this schedule without talking about Tom Brady's return to New England. And by the way, if anyone wants to, loan me like $1,400 to $1,500 so I could go buy a ticket for that game, I would be forever in your debt, because that's what tickets are going for. It is a Sunday night football game. Tom Brady comes home and the Super Bowl champion Bucks. I'm sorry, the Patriots aren't winning that game. I would like for them to, but it's not going to happen. The Bucks literally returned every single starter from the Super Bowl team. So could the Patriots keep it interesting for 3 quarters? Potentially, but it's Tom Brady. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they'll pull away for that one. And Tom Brady better get the standing ovation of a lifetime. That's all I've got to say. If I hear one single boo from anyone in that stands, I would want to jump through the TV. Tom, I've been on this show plenty of times saying Tom Brady gave us 6 Super Bowls. He earned the right to go wherever he wanted, and he did that. So New England, be thankful come week 4. Week 5, I am saying this with 100% confidence. Patriots will beat the Houston Texans. Or you could call them the Houston Trash Cans, because that is basically what they are. Sorry, Houston. I get you have Deshaun Watson, who may play, may not play. I've heard some reports say he may sit out the entire year to kind of get this legal stuff resolved. I'm not going to dive too deep into that because we'd be here all night. So Patriots, I think, beat Houston in week 5. Got the Cowboys. I think that's another toss-up game. Dak coming off the injury. That offense is pretty darn good. Defensively, I think the Patriots could take advantage. We'll see. I think that's a toss-up. Get the Jets again. I think that's a win. At the Los Angeles Chargers, my gut tells me that's going to be a loss. I love Justin Herbert and what he did last year. I just think, and that Keenan Allen and that receiving core and Justin Herbert's something special. So I think the Patriots go out to LA and lose. It's going to be a long flight. And I think, unfortunately, they'll probably have a long one back to Foxborough. Then they go to Carolina. Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore. That's going to be a toss-up game. Sam Darnold. That's going to be probably in the middle of Sam Darnold and what they got to surround him with. Like I said, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey. That's going to be a tough offense to stop, I think, if Sam Darnold kind of gets it right. Then here's the stretch that concerns me. And it's, I think, going to define the Patriots season. It starts on Sunday, November 14th, when we host the Cleveland Browns. Like Will said, I think it's a toss-up, but Cleveland looks to be in pretty darn good shape going into this year. They upgraded their defense. That offense is potent. I think that can give the Patriots trouble. I'm not going to a lot of these games that I'm going to go through are toss-ups. So I'm not going to project a win or a loss here, but it goes Browns at the Falcons. Can we stop the Atlanta offense? I don't know. They added Kyle Pitts, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. They still have Todd Gurley. Matt Ryan's still a really good quarterback. That's going to be a tough game. Then we were talking before the show. Yeah. Then after we go, it's Browns, Falcons. Then we go to Titan, or we host Yash, Tennessee Titans. I feel like Derrick Henry could run for 500 yards in that game because he's Derrick Henry. Not because I don't trust our defense, but just because no one is stopping Derrick Henry. We've seen that the last 2 or 3 years. So after Browns, Falcons, Titans, we go to Buffalo, have a bye, go to Indy, play Buffalo again. So that, if following along, Browns, Falcons, Titans, Bills, have a bye, Colts, Bills again. Those 6 games, I have no idea about. I think if the Patriots find a way to go, I'd say 3-3 in that 6-game stretch, I'd be happy. 4-2, amazing. 2-4, understandable, but you would like, as the season's trying to wind down, and you're probably fighting for playoff positioning, you'd probably like it to be at least 500 or better. Then we end the year with, we get Trevor Lawrence at home and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Once again, Bill Belichick, rookie quarterbacks. I think he's going to make Trevor Lawrence's life a living hell. And then we end the year just like we started the year, playing the Miami Dolphins. And of course, week 17 at Miami. My gut is telling me that something chaotic is going to happen, because it always does. We all remember the Miami Miracle from a few years ago. So it concerns me a little bit. The Patriots haven't won in Miami, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years. So that's going to be a challenging stretch. But overall, I think it's like Will said with the Bears schedule, I think it's an interesting schedule. I think the Patriots could maybe, I'm not going to predict a record, but 9-8, 10-7. It's weird predicting these records, with the 17 games. But so the Patriots have their challenges. Like I said, that 6-game stretch is going to be interesting. They have a late bye, which I don't like. So they could be tired after heading into a critical stretch, but we'll see. Cam is going to be on a prove-it year. And if he performs badly, hey, just like the Bears, we could throw our rookie quarterback in there and see how he does.
That's what I was gonna follow up with. There is like, do you see Mac? Which game do you see if would be kind of the best game if you were to throw Mac Jones into a situation?
Honestly, I say if we get up big, at Houston, I could see Bill Belichick giving Mac Jones some playing time.
Yeah.
If we go up big, which I don't think we will, because we're going to rely on the run game and probably a ton of our defense this year. Yeah. So I don't think we're going to be blowing people out per se. But if that's a game, or if any game really, where we're up big, late third quarter, early fourth, and the game's pretty much in reach, I could see Mac Jones getting a quarter or playing time.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's actually a really interesting question. It's something we could that'll be a great debate to have later this year once the season happens. Whose rookie quarterback's going to get in first? Is it going to be Mac Jones or is it going to be Justin Fields? Because the other half of that question is, okay, which quarterback's going to be better? The veteran per se, is it going to be Andy Dalton or is it going to be Cam Newton? That's tough.
Bears and Pats in very similar situations.
I almost wish they played each other this year. Maybe then it'd be the Mac Jones Justin Fields Bowl.
Yeah. Oh yeah, back to the National College Football playoff national championship rematch, I guess, between the quarterbacks.
Yeah, don't bring that up. Oh god, I hate
Between
memories of that
Mac
as
and,
Buckeye fan.
and Justin. But no, I mean, and Cody, you asked the Jets who they play week 1. It's their former quarterback, Sam Darnold.
Oh
Carolina
yeah,
Panthers.
that's right. They do play Carolina.
So
I
that'll
forgot
be
about that.
that'll be a very interesting, intriguing matchup as well, with Darnold coming up to play his former team there in New York. But no, interesting interesting schedules both for Chicago and New England. For Tennessee, we start off the year playing Arizona. Arizona, I mean, they acquired J.J. Watt this year. They've already got DeAndre.
Tough. I'm sorry. I was just looking at your first 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's a tough little schedule here with Arizona, Seattle, Seattle's at Seattle, and then Indianapolis always gives the Titans fits. We'll see how Carson Wentz performs in the fold there. Then we go at New York to face Zach Wilson, face the number 1 and number 2 and number 1 overall picks in back-to-back weeks, and Zach
right.
Wilson and Trevor Lawrence on the road too. And I think the toughest stretch there for us is going to be Monday, October 18th through the 31st, you could say, is Buffalo, Kansas City, and at Indianapolis. At Indianapolis always gives the Titans fits. For some reason, Lucas Oil Stadium has not been very kind to us as of late. So I think that's kind of the toughest stretch. We also have a late bye week. Actually, the week before the Patriots bye, we play the Patriots, and then we have our bye week on December 5th, and I believe the Patriots have their bye week on the 12th. So a week before your bye week, Cody, is our Titans bye week, and then we play. We face Trevor Lawrence again at home, coming off that bye week. Pittsburgh, which I mean depends on how Big Ben's holding up at that point in the year, December 19th. San Francisco will be a tough game. We played Miami a couple times. Always tough playing the Dolphins, and Houston should be an easy win. I mean, if I was to say an easy win, Houston would be the 2 Houston games that we have on our division schedule here. Should be 2 pretty easy wins, with the way that Cody had mentioned that with Deshaun Watson potentially being out for the year. They already lost Will Fuller to Miami. I mean, they've got David Culley, who really doesn't have a great history in coaching. I think they had the fun fact on CBS Sports saying when he was coaching with the Kansas City Chiefs, their wide receivers had like the worst touchdown percentage in the league in 2014 or 2015.
Who's Houston's backup quarterback? Does anybody know?
It is. Oh yeah, Tyrod Taylor. They just signed Tyrod.
Oh, they signed Tyrod.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
he's capable.
Yeah,
Let's hopefully he doesn't have a trainer puncture his
yeah. That's what I was gonna say.
Let's hope that he stays healthy.
Let's hope he can stay healthy there. But yeah, no, they signed Tyrod earlier this month, so or last month, excuse me. But yeah, it'll be there's not a lot of games on this schedule that are real easy. I guess you could say cakewalks, but I think the 2 Houston games will be interesting. Will be pretty easy wins for sure. But yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, the Titans have just. I mean, they lost Jadeveon Clowney on that defensive side. They went to Cleveland, signed with the Browns there. I mean, you lose Corey Davis to the Jets, Jonnu Smith to your Patriots, Cody, on the tight end side.
Thank you. for giving us him.
drafted an offensive lineman to protect Ryan Tannehill there and to run block a little bit with Dylan Radins from North Dakota, NDSU, North Dakota State. But you know, I you know, in the draft, I had expected the Titans to make more moves offensively on the offensive side of the ball with receivers, receivers or a tight end. And unfortunately, I saw the Titans went more of the defensive route, got safeties, corners, everything where I was like, this is not really what we need, but hey, you know, it's John Robinson out there in Nashville and Mike Vrabel. You know, maybe they're seeing something that I'm not as a Titans fan. That's why they're getting paid the big bucks and I'm not. But that's kind of, you know, just like I said, not too many. I would say easy games. It's again, it's still it'll be a lot of toss ups like Codey had with the New England Patriots. But overall, like if I was to say, like I've been saying, the Texans games, I have a lot of faith in us pulling off. But the other, I mean, Indianapolis, I mean, even Jacksonville's even kind of becoming a scarier team. They had, you know, with Lawrence, with ETN, which ETN, I'm surprised. Just a side note here, I saw that
I think
Urban
I know where you're
Meyer's,
going with this.
yeah, Urban Meyer's using him as a wide receiver or putting him in the wide receiver spot instead of the a running back role, which he's used to from college. So
You could have drafted a wide
yeah,
receiver
yeah,
with
that's
a pick.
yeah,
Just saying.
yeah.
But
Maybe he turns up like the Julian Edelman quarterback to receiver switch. Maybe he goes running back to receiver. I don't know. I don't
I
know.
love Urban to death, but I'm
Yeah.
I'm questioning. I mean,
Yeah.
his tenure in Jacksonville is not off to the greatest starts.
Yeah. Well, but wins solve all. Hopefully he can get some
That is
wins.
very
And
true.
if he's able to get some wins, a lot of people, I know we talked about Tebow a little bit too last week, and they you know they're close to signing Tim Tebow, who's going to go from the quarterback to the tight end position there. And that's a lot of people have a lot of thoughts on that too. So, you know, if he can
Those are my thoughts. 2 thumbs down.
pull some wins, get some wins going, then, you know, I think it'll kind of, you know, all the outside noise will stop, because that's the NFL. The wins are the ultimate kind of what is the word for it? The ultimate, I guess, out of everything. So again, we'll have to, you know, like I said, none of our teams really have easy schedules, like we've said. Really tough schedules, and like I said, it'll be. Well, you said it right. It'll be interesting to see when the season begins to kind of have that discussion of who's, you know. It's interesting with the Patriots and the Bears being in a similar situation with the rookie quarterbacks. Titans really, we've got Derrick Henry. The offensive side of the ball, really not too many changes there. We got AJ Brown. We have a new Dez Fitzpatrick, versatile wide receiver that we drafted in the 5th round. And but even the Titans, their drafts, you know, a couple of two of our draft picks got in trouble right after the draft. So even that's kind of up in the air. I know our last year's draft pick, we had to we traded. He got into trouble as soon as he got drafted. So I don't know what it is about our late round draft picks over the last couple of years, but it's been a struggle with those late round draft picks. But yeah, it'll be an interesting discussion to see with the quarterbacks with the Bears and the Patriots, to kind of compare when they start, what games you would kind of look to throw them in once the season starts, and kind of the comparisons of like you had mentioned, the veterans versus the two rookies that are on your respective teams. But when you look at the kind of the strength of the schedule, I know we talk about that a lot in college football and also the NFL here, but when you look at the toughness, strength or toughness of the NFL schedule, which teams do you think kind of won that, and which teams do you think like lost the NFL schedule battle for this year, in terms of like which teams do you think have the toughest schedule versus which teams won it with kind of having an easier schedule over these 17, this new 17-week format?
Well, we're talking about the Steelers a little bit. No, they play the Bears. They got the short end of the stick, and they have the toughest schedule by win, and this is based off winning percentage of last year. So the Steelers are facing teams who last year combined for a 574 winning percentage, and you see this with a lot with the AFC North and the NFC North, because the two divisions basically play one another. And I know the NFC North, Will, I think you also mentioned you guys play the NFC West, I believe. So it's kind of just how the strength of schedule goes. I mean, you look at it, the Steelers and Ravens, that may bode well for the Browns if they can, look to extend that. But I think the Steelers, they obviously got the short end of the stick a little bit, because when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and you're asking yourself, all right, how much does Big Ben really have left? And just another question. Okay, yes, you drafted Najee Harris, but your run protection and offensive line as a whole last year was putrid. It was horrendous. So it's okay to draft Najee Harris, sure, but who the hell is going to block for it? You need to start with an offensive line, and they didn't do that. Big Ben can't move basically at all. I'm not a fan of Juju really at all. I don't think he's a number one. They have some other pieces. I know Deontay Johnson.
Well, that's another situation, if you don't mind me butting in here for a second. But that's another situation that we could also, like with the quarterbacks, with when we're going to throw in Justin Fields or Mac Jones, we could also we could also look at like, hey, we have another Ohio State guy in Dwayne Haskins.
They're not as much as I loved.
Do you see Haskins getting thrown in the?
He's there. I don't see any way they throw in Dwayne Haskins. They're not gonna. Big Ben's tenure as a Pittsburgh Steeler is not going to end with a benching. I just don't see it. It's something to maybe think about for 2 years from now, but I don't see that happening really at all. But I mean, they got the short end of the stick. It's kind of so that those AFC North and NFC North teams really kind of did get short end of the stick there. Just for reference, Patriots are in the bottom half. They 489 combined win percentage. I'll take that. And then you look at some of the teams that got off easy. Of course, the Super Bowl champs, who look, I know this is the division, which division plays what is rotated yearly, or I think bi-yearly or something like that. So you kind of know the schedule a little bit going ahead, but the Buccaneers really have the 4th easiest schedule in the league. Come on. I mean, as much as everyone probably the media wants a back-to-back Super Bowl champ, because we haven't had one since the Patriots did it in the early 2000s. I mean, the NFL just made it pretty darn easy for the road to Super Bowl to go through Tampa again. I mean, because you look at Tampa, it, like I said earlier, they literally brought every single starter back. And the fact that they get the fourth easiest schedule kind of it is what it is, but people would look at that and be like, why though? So I mean that's something to keep your eye on. And then the easiest team is a team to keep your eye on really with Philly. Because I mean they kind of caught a break because this is a year where we're really going to analyze Jalen Hurts and see if he can actually play at the NFL level consistently. They added Devontae Smith. Um, I like to say Philly's where wide receivers go to die because they haven't had a capable wide receiver, I think, since Deshaun Jackson when he was in his prime, and dating back even then To a little bit. So Philly, I mean, you got off easy. You sure did. And when you're trying to look at Jalen Hurts and see if he's the guy to go forward, so I guess they're happy about that. But so yeah, those are kind of the two far ends of the spectrum. With the AFC North and NFC North teams kind of getting the short end of the stick, then the NFC East a little bit. Well, honestly, the NFC East, the reason why their winning percentage is so low is because they play 6 games in that division, and we all know how bad that division was last year. So that's another thing to consider when you see like the Cowboys, the Eagles have strength of schedule. Well, it's because they play 6 teams, all 6 who had horrible winning percentages last year. So that kind of factors into that as well. But Eagles kind of got off easy. And like I said, AFC North, NFC North kind of drew the short end of the stick when it comes to hard schedules.
Yeah, I will say as a whole, collectively, I would say the NFC North and AFC North teams kind of got the short end of the stick here because, yeah, the hardest schedules belong to the Steelers, Ravens, Bears, Packers, Vikings, Bengals, Lions, and the Rams. All those teams, or the Browns, or all those teams are in the top 10. It's going to be a challenge for the Steelers. I think that they're probably one of the biggest losers because they're already just having an identity crisis with what their offense is going to look like. They, moved on from James Conner. Yeah, they still have Big Ben, but at this point, you're not really competing with Big Ben. And, Dwayne Haskins, as great as it is that he gets another opportunity and another shot to figure it out. I don't, when you're looking from the outside in, like we are you do you feel that confident, or even if you are a Steelers fan, do you feel confident with that kind of quarterback room when it's nothing but question marks, really? So I think the Steelers are definitely a loser. The Ravens, I think it could be a loser here because look, the Ravens have a talented team. We know that Lamar Jackson, talented. Coach Harbaugh is a great coach. They have a solid defense, and uh, they have playmakers on offense. I think they've acquired some talent. They've shifted around some movement with the running back position. Mark Ingram's not there anymore. They drafted another wide receiver, trying to get that number one wide receiver for Lamar Jackson. But really, it comes down to, can Lamar Jackson? We know he's a threat. We know he's a great fantasy quarterback to have, but can he finally figure out how to be an NFL quarterback when it comes to passing the football? And the Ravens have a lot of tough teams to play this year in terms of defenses. I mean, the Bears, the Browns, just to name a few teams there. The Colts have a pretty solid defense, the Chiefs, and most of these games are taking place the first half of their schedule. You have to face Aaron Donald and the Rams near the end of the year, the Browns again. It's just a very tricky schedule to pick to predict how much success they're going to have, just because they have a lot of tough defenses to go against. And they're another team where, yeah, they got Lamar Jackson. Yeah, they got playmakers, but can their running backs fill the void of moving on from Mark Ingram? Can Lamar Jackson be that elite passer and not just run around, with his legs, which he's a beast at anyways? I'm going to put the Bears as a loser because they have a very tough schedule and they're in a tough spot where Yeah, I mean, Andy Dalton is serviceable. Justin Fields, yeah, I'm excited to hopefully maybe see him on the field sometime this year. But the Bears' offensive identity as a whole is a work in progress with what they're going to do with the new look offensive line. There's new wide receivers coming in. We don't know if guys like Anthony Miller and Javon Wims are going to be there. There's just a lot of question marks on how everything's going to play out. Tariq Cohen, coming back from the ACL, his twin brother just recently passed away. I mean, he's got a lot going on. Hopefully he can bounce back when it comes time to get on the football field. But that's just, it's very tough. Now, the Packers, they could be a loser. They have the fourth hardest schedule. They are a loser if Aaron Rodgers is not on the field for them week one. If Blake Bortles is their starter, they're screwed. If Aaron Rodgers is there again, reigning MVP, then I'm not too worried, but they better hope they win games, because if they do slip and fall and they don't win games, or if some crazy thing happens where they don't make the playoffs or whatever, it's not going to bode well for this continuing Aaron Rodgers saga in Green Bay. Those teams, I would say, are probably the biggest losers or have the biggest chance of losing and having a tough schedule. I look at a team like the Browns with the ninth hardest schedule. I think they're good enough to overlook that. I can't talk now. A schedule that has a combined winning percentage of 51 or 52%. So some winners quickly. I'm definitely going to go with the Falcons because they have the third easiest schedule. That's a team that they still have Julio Jones, they still have Matt Ryan. There's a couple of guys on that defense that are supposed to be good if they could just stay healthy and not get hurt. I think a team like the Colts that have like the 23rd hardest schedule, that's a team with they're in an ideal position with Carson Wentz. That's not a horrible schedule that they have, and that might be good in terms of helping getting Carson Wentz to hopefully bounce back and be their quarterback of the future. The Bills, them being again already a playoff team, they're tied for the 23rd hardest schedule with the Colts. So the Saints, 22nd hardest schedule. They're having, a new identity at quarterback, whether it's Hill, whether it's Winston. It doesn't hurt when your opponents have a below 500 winning percentage. So I could sit here all day and debate all these things, but I mean, these are essentially, I think, some of the teams that have the hardest schedules, and there's a couple of teams either in ideal situations or having to face some identity crisis. Like again, the Saints with, oh my God, who's going to be our quarterback? Drew Brees is gone. There are some really good football teams that have some pretty easy schedules here, and there's a couple of teams. Really, the teams that have the harder schedules, I think, are the ones that are actually up in the air in terms of just how good are they going to be. The Steelers are a question mark. The Ravens should be good, but can Lamar Miller take them the distance, or Lamar Jackson take them the distance this year? The Bears, do they have a good enough offensive identity? Can they figure it out to compete with some of these teams? The Packers, Aaron Rodgers has to be there. The Vikings with the fifth hardest schedule. Okay, is Kirk Cousins the answer finally? A lot of interesting things here, and just everybody as a whole is going to have to get used to a 17-game schedule and some later bye weeks for some teams. We touched on that earlier too. So, it's going to be interesting. A little bit of a change for everybody with 17 games.
Definitely. No, definitely. I think, it's I kind of have a very similar look to the winners and losers. Obviously, losers being, the Steelers, Ravens, which, fun fact of the day, the Cleveland Browns, well, in their division, are the first team in the NFL since 1970. I saw this today, that play the Ravens in back-to-back games. So they play the Ravens. They play the Ravens on the road on the 28th of November. Then they have a bye week, and then they play the Ravens again on the 12th of December. So just to throw out a little fun fact there, first time since 1970, that's the way the NFL schedule has worked out, for where the Ravens will face the Browns back to back there. So, but I think again, like you said, the Steelers and the Ravens kind of are the losers here. Steelers again. You mentioned there, Big Ben. It kind of having, like you mentioned, the Najee Harris drafting, with the way that their offensive line is structured right now, kind of questionable. But they have Benny Snell in the backfield there still, but um, you know we'll have to see how Big Ben holds up. I know they have an earlier bye week. So do the Ravens. The Ravens have a bye week here. Let me see here. The Ravens have a bye week, I believe, in week 6. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. So very early on in the schedule that the Ravens have a bye week. Get 10, then they got to go the 10 weeks straight there in this 17 game schedule. But like you said, Will, it'll be interesting to see. Everyone's going to have to get used to this 17 games playing in this new format and new schedule, and it'll be a fun. I mean, I always love more football. With the more football, the merrier. I've said this before, so it'll be an interesting little year this year to see how this 17 game schedule impacts health, players coming back, injuries, and things of that nature as well, along with having more football games to watch in the regular season. But speaking of the regular season, I already touched on kind of one marquee matchup that a lot of people are talking about is Darnold coming back to the New York area to face the Jets in Week 1, and his replacement in Zach Wilson in New York. But what kind of marquee matchups are you looking forward to kind of watching next season? Some big name matchups you're looking forward to.
Well, Cody mentioned earlier the week 4 matchup between the Buccaneers and the Patriots. Obviously, Tom Brady coming home for the first time since leaving New England. That'll be a great game. That'll be hyped up. Of course, everybody's going to be talking about that. And it's a primetime game. Another game that features the Buccaneers in week 14, maybe an early, a little early preview of maybe one of the Super Bowl matchups, which would be the Buccaneers again, maybe taking on the Bills. That would be great to see. And again, at week 14, you're starting to get into the time where it's, playoff implications are on the line. It's going to be essentially maybe an early season or an early playoff type game, for those two teams contending for playoff positioning. Bills and Chiefs in week 5, that could be an AFC, divisional round or title, AFC championship round. So a little preview of what an AFC matchup could look like. Chiefs and Ravens, week 2, of course, 2 of the premier quarterbacks in the league, which would be great to see play. Of course, Rams and Seahawks, they always have great games going back and forth. That's week 5. Packers and Chiefs, week 9 will be great if Aaron Rodgers is there playing. That would be, again, maybe potential Super Bowl matchup, a little preview of what could be if all things go well in Green Bay. Lions and Rams week 7. The Lions head to Los Angeles, and that will be, the Matthew Stafford maybe revenge game as he faces his former team for the last time or for the first time. So there's going to be a couple of different former quarterbacks taking on, their former teams. So those 2 games specifically, I think will be great to see. And then, of course, actually the third game involving former quarterbacks going against their former teams would be the Patriots and Cam Newton going against the Panthers. That's to say if Mac Jones isn't in by week 9, but we'll see how that goes. And of course, lastly, and I know I brought up a lot, but there's a lot of really good games, I think, mostly involving the quarterbacks here because Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars take on the Bengals and Joe Burrow in a week 4 matchup. So I think after we had an offseason that we expected to see so much change and so much movement at the quarterback position, I think that's going to be one of the leading headlines for the 2021 season is just seeing these teams, these players on their new teams, and some of them are facing their former teams. And then you got the young guns like Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, or the guys that are currently dominating the game like, Lamar Jackson and and Patrick Mahomes. So I think a lot of the top matchups, the most anticipated matchups, are going to be mostly because of the battle of the quarterbacks.
I'm going to throw in one that you really didn't get too well, and it involves, I'll even throw in your Chicago Bears here. It's on October 10th when they go to the Raiders. I mean, people talk about that game. No, but there's a storyline there that people often, well, may not remember. As a Bears fan, you will obviously remember this. It's the Khalil Mack trade. I mean, look, what John Gruden, but when he shipped him off, we were all saying, what, or I don't think, was John, yeah, John Gruden was there, right?
I think that was
That was his first year.
his first
That was
year.
okay, yeah.
Yep.
So didn't know if I got my timelines mixed up or not, but so it's we revisit this again, and it was Khalil Mack. Is he going to have a monster game against his former team? Keep in mind, guys, the Raiders haven't made the playoffs since they traded him. I mean, it's gonna be, that's kind of one of these things we look back on when we talk about trades. When we trade superstars, it's who really won the trade. And I think I think you, and if Zach was here, would probably agree with me too. Bears won that trade going away because the Raiders haven't done anything since. I mean, yeah, you got a ton of draft picks and that's nice, but you haven't really capitalized on any of those draft picks yet.
They did beat us in the 2019 season matchup. So the Khalil Mack revenge game, unfortunately, did not go well, but hopefully part two of that battle
It's
goes to
another
the Bears.
round of the revenge game, and it's going to be a storyline we always talk about when these two teams play. So that's a key one. We brought up Jets Panthers. I mean, that's going to be, Sam Darnold going against his former team. And I really do think Sam Darnold, I talk about a guy who can really deserves to be in a situation like this. I've said it on the show a few times. I think Sam Darnold will have, I'm not going to say he's going to win MVP or any outlandish thing like that. I think he's going to have a damn good season. I mean, you look at the talent Sam Darnold is surrounded with. For the love of God, he could check it down to Christian McCaffrey every play if he really wanted to, and he'd be fine. But DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and they've got weapons for Sam Darnold. This is the most talented team Sam Darnold has ever been on. And he's going to show the Jets, see what you do when you actually surround me with decent weapons. So, I mean, that's another matchup that I think Sam Darnold will hopefully, I'm rooting for Sam Darnold to light the Jets on fire with how well he plays, because I'm holding him to a high standard because this is basically his last chance. If he doesn't perform well here, then it's like, okay, then what's going on? Why aren't you playing as well? And people just say, oh, no, see, he's got all this talent and he's still the same old Sam Darnold. So I'm rooting for him, but the pressure is definitely on for Sam Darnold to perform. I mean, I'm just going down some of these games that Jaguars, Bengals. I mean, Trevor Lawrence versus Joe Burrow, rematch of the national championship game where Joe Burrow absolutely tore everyone to shreds. I mean, that LSU team was just on a mission that year. So that's going to be interesting. And then a sneaky one, guys, is I'm curious to see how the final score of the two Falcons and Buccaneers games this year. Because, I mean, if we all know the Bucs and their offense, and granted, their defense is just as good, if not better. I'm going to say the Falcons could potentially split with Tampa this year. I mean, you had Kyle Pitts, you have Calvin Ridley, you have Julio Jones if he stays on the team. I know there are trade rumors swirling around out there. But there's no reason why Atlanta if they get their defense in order, why they couldn't be a decent team again. And I'm not saying they're going to go out there and win the division by any means, but make a wild card. I could maybe see that. I wouldn't understand why not. And yeah, they're just, I mean, Vikings, Packers. I mean, it's so many. There's so many great games this year, and Will, I know you touched on a ton of them. I think every single week we are going to be saying this game is going to make me sit down in front of my TV, stream it, do whatever I got to do to see it, because I think we're going to have one game each week in the NFL like that, where whether that be a big storyline, whether that be a just an overall exciting matchup, or whether that be playoff implications, you name it. I think we're going to have one game each week in the NFL like that this year. I mean, more football gives us a chance to have more exciting games. That is the one thing I will say as a pro of the 17-game season is we have a chance for more exciting finishes, exciting matchups, and fantasy people. I'm curious to see how that's going to work fantasy-wise too. But that's another topic for another day. But yeah, it's going to be fun watching all of these games this year with so many different storylines.
Yeah, a lot of different storylines, and like you said, the more football, the merrier. There and another game that I would like to add on all the games that you guys have mentioned. Really, big matchups there. The game would be the December 16th game for the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. It'll be interesting to see Justin Herbert, the rookie of the year, the Pepsi Rookie of the Year, take on Patrick Mahomes. Justin Herbert has been lighting up for the Chargers, and we'll see how he fares against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And so, again, like the Jaguars Bengals matchups, that was the one of them which I was going to mention, as well as it'll be interesting to see, like you said, how all these matchups in the 17 game schedule play out. Obviously, Cody, you mentioned the Patriots Bucks tickets are I don't know if I could even afford those. 1,400. Yeah.
If you can add a plane ticket
plus the plane ticket, that's yeah.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm already broke paying for the Bears tickets.
Yeah.
If the Patriots were playing in Chicago, I'd say come on up and I'd take you to the game.
Yeah.
But I've actually a friend group that were Yash and some of our friends are actually, there's another Patriots fan in the group, and we're actually hopefully gonna go to the Patriots Colts game in Indy this year. So
yeah,
hopefully I can at least go to one Patriot game, because believe it or not, I have never been, because obviously they play out on the freaking East Coast and they're rarely ever this close to me in Indianapolis. So I'm looking forward to going, hopefully.
Yeah, it'll be that'll be nice, and nice to have them in near
less than an hour
home,
from me.
less than an hour away. Yeah, in Lucas Oil Stadium, going up against Carson Wentz and the Indianapolis Colts there. So interesting round of schedules, and I'm excited. I'm excited for this new 17 game schedule, and I'm excited to see how, again, like I said, how that fares. Cody, you brought up a good point in fantasy as well, how the fantasy regular season is going to go, how that's a whole nother discussion, like you mentioned there. It'll be intriguing. I know that the NFL, they added 2 more. They're keeping with their contract with like the NFL international games. It seems like they have the Jets, Falcons, and then the Dolphins and the Jags. Seems like the Jags always end up playing in London somewhere or another. The NFL makes it happen. That's so Again, interesting. Another interesting tidbit to this season. Playing overseas this year, and the NFL again trying to grow the game, grow the shield, and provide more football. I know I see Will smiling a little bit, but yeah, I mean, again, it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out this season, and hopefully wish all of our teams the hope for the best of luck there for all of our teams moving into the 2021 NFL season. But with that being said, we want to let you know that you're listening to Beyond the Press Box with Yash Paddy, Codey Emerson, and Will Hatzel. Be sure to follow and interact with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. To listen to more great episodes, subscribe to our podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, Beyond the Press Box on YouTube. You can also listen to us on the Unhinged Sports Network. Head over to unhingedsn.com to listen to us and check out other great podcasts featured on the network as well. Before we return you to the show, we want to let you know that through our partnership with the Unhinged Sports Network, we've partnered with Fubo TV. What is Fubo TV? Fubo TV brings you 100 plus channels, including CBS, NBC, Fox, ESPN, and many more, without the hassle of a cable contract. Don't believe me? Click the link in our social media bios and start your 7-day free trial today. We touched on the NFL schedule and the intriguing factors of the NFL schedule for the 2021 season, but a lot of intrigue is heating up in the NBA world, as well as the NBA play-in tournament begins on Tuesday night, and the play-in tournament matchups are being set tonight. Tonight's the final night, or Sunday, excuse me. The day we're recording this podcast is the final night of the regular season here. But Codey, the Pacers are set to play the Charlotte Hornets here on Tuesday.
Are.
So, what are when you look at this matchup with Charlotte, what are the keys to victory for Indiana in this play-in tournament matchup?
Defense, and more defense. The Pacers got in the play-in, and they get one more home game, which is nice. But I'm still kind of upset that they even made the play-in, because I would have preferred the 11th overall pick in the lottery, or at least the chance to be in the lottery and get the 10th, 11th pick in the draft. But here the Pacers are. I mean, they picked up a you can call it convincing, win over Philly earlier this week, then competed really hard with the Lakers on Saturday night. Only lost by 7 points. Then they beat Toronto the day we're recording this on Sunday to secure that 9th spot. So they're playing about as well as they could be going in. I'm still not a fan of them getting this spot. I'll get to the matchup in the Hornets against the Hornets here in just a second, and get to your actual question. But I just am not a fan, because, okay, congratulations. The Pacers, they have to win 2 games. They have to win this one against Charlotte, and then they would then go and play the loser of the 7-8. And then they would have to win that one as well to even be the 8th seed. There's no way the Pacers can be the 7. So Pacers are basically playing for the 8th spot at this point. And then you look at it, oh, yay, you get Philly. Keep in mind the win against, I know I just mentioned the Pacers beat them, but that was without Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid will be healthy, obviously, for a 7-game series in the playoffs. I don't like the Pacers going up against Philly. I think the Pacers would be lucky to get one game, but that's another story for another day. Against the matchup against the Hornets, it's not particularly favorable. The Hornets beat the Pacers in the season series 2-1. Obviously, LaMelo Ball is a guy to keep your eye on. And another thing to keep your eye on is the Pacers' health. I continually say this because it's just we are missing still so many people. I think we only had, I'd want to say 9-10 guys available today to play on Sunday against the Raptors. So, I mean, Edmund Sumner, Malcolm Brogdon were unavailable. Key bench guy, or Malcolm Brogdon's a starter for us, obviously. He's starting to do more. He did a walk or a warm. I cannot talk. Will, you're wearing off on me. Gosh darn it.
Sorry.
It's a walk through before the Raptors game. And so that's encouraging to see he still didn't play, but it's nice to see that he's progressing towards that. Edmund Sumner was still out. Jeremy Lamb's still out. Miles Turner is week to week at this point. So the big thing is health with the Pacers. I mean, I can't tell you who's going to be healthy. But it's a one game against Charlotte. I think they can win it. Sabonis should have his way down in the post. By the way, he has like 9 triple doubles this year, and no one talks about that. And over the past month, he's averaging, I think, like 25 and 13 or 14. So he's been on a tear. If we get Malcolm Brogdon back, that'll be huge. Unfortunately, I have to work and cover an event Tuesday night, so I'm going to be just refreshing my phone every like 5 seconds to see what the score is. But the Pacers can win it. I really don't know the purpose of them winning it. Like I said, I don't. It would just kind of extend what we all know is the eventual, and that's a first round exit again this year. You just got to hope that they're playing for pride. They're playing probably for Nate Bjorkgren's job, because I don't know what happens if Pacers go out and lose this game, or if that changes their decision at all on the future of Nate Bjorkgren. Rumors were swirling that he may get fired after this year. I don't agree with that one bit, but it is what it is. Pacers will have their hands full with the Hornets. Like I said, LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, Terry Rozier can light up the scoreboard on any given night. So I think it'll be a close game. I'm going to say the Pacers pull out a win. And then like I said, they would play the winner of, they would play the loser, of Boston and Washington. Even then, that's not a favorable matchup. The Wizards swept the Pacers in the season series. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure Boston won the season series against the Pacers too. So Pacers are going to have an uphill climb even just to get into the actual playoffs themselves. But in terms of this play-in game, I think they can pull it out. But if they lose, it's not going to surprise me either way. I think this could go 50-50. But we'll see on Tuesday night, and I can maybe next week on next week's show, I can actually I'll either be talking about them and as the season has ended, or if they're prepping to probably face Philly. So it'll be interesting to keep in touch. I'll keep in touch with this. Obviously, pay close attention to it, and I can give you guys more next week. So it'll be a stressful week for me and for the Pacers. That's for sure.
Which I'll say this too. I know you mentioned Nate Bjorkgren as well. His rumors swirling on that he may be fired, which I also don't really think that that's a fair thing to do, because based on that you just mentioned, I know you tweeted a couple weeks ago the handshake with the injuries and the Pacers, and
Go
it's
hand in hand.
not really his fault. The way the season has gone. I mean the handful of injuries. I mean Miles Turner, probably defensive player of the year, would have gotten defensive player of the year here in my book, and the impact that he has on this Pacers team as well has been missed. And so just, I like I said, I don't think it's a fair, thing to do to kick him to the curb after one season, just because, you know, uh, looking at the amount of injuries, that Indiana had there.
Yeah, and I was scrolling through Twitter because I saw this from Tyler Smith on Twitter, who I keep in touch with. He covers the Pacers. He tweeted this a few days ago, and it's even more games than this. Now, total missed games due to injury for the Pacers, who were riddled with injury last year. As I keep bringing up, they missed a total of 192 games between all the players that were hurt last year. This year, it's gonna surpass 240 total games missed by every single guy. So, I mean, I would hate to see him go. I think he at least deserves a healthy roster. I believe every coach deserves a healthy roster to kind of see what they can do. But we had TJ Warren for 4 games and then was out for the year. We had
saved Karis Levert's life.
Carrots, the trade. He was the trade that literally saved his life, probably.
Yeah.
Then Sabonis, Brogdon, Lamb.
Yeah.
It's just the Pacers, to put it in perspective, today on Sunday against Toronto, the Pacers had one normal start, and that was Karis LeVert play. The rest were, I compliment the hell out of every single role player. O'Shea Brissett, who was signed to a guaranteed contract for the rest of the year, had a career high 31 points. So he stepped up. Guys have stepped up. There's no question about that. But you would like to see your normal, what you would thought going into the year was your starting 5 actually play together.
Yeah. No, then that makes a big difference there. Like I said, the plethora of injuries, and you mentioned that. Even I mentioned Miles Turner, the big man.
He will not play in the play. That's big to mention. He's not going to play in the play-in. Bjorkgren did confirm that.
Yeah.
So if Pacers do make it to the playoffs, we can maybe talk about it then, but he will not be available in play-in tournament. Yeah,
and that's a big loss there too. I know he was leading the NBA in blocks for the time there. But
he technically still is. He just hasn't.
Okay.
Well, the thing is, if you look on NBA.com, he hasn't played or participated in
enough
the required amount of games to qualify for. He still technically leads the league, but he hasn't. He hasn't continually played in. I think it's like 75% of your team's games.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, not his. I mean, it's injuries, so you really can't control. Injuries there, but again, hopefully, we'll have to see. I'll be working too on Tuesday, so I'll be probably keeping in touch with this play-in tournament through my phone as well. But before we touch on these first round matchups here, I want to look at your Bulls here for a sec too, and you just won their final regular season game, 118-112 against the Milwaukee Bucks here. I know Bulls have been eliminated from the playoffs here, but looking ahead to the 2021 or the 2021-2022 season, What kind of positives can you take away from this season, and where do you look to go from here? Where do the Bulls look to go from here, and kind of who on this roster? I know you had sent to us in our little Twitter chat or group chat early on about the Bulls today, but who do you kind of look to build on moving forward on this Bulls roster?
Well, I think it's easier than what some people have claimed. I've listened to some other people's podcasts and some other people's takes on this. And first off, you have your foundational pieces. And remember, at the beginning of the season, so early on, months ago on this podcast, before the season started, I was explaining to Zach and you guys that this was a big year for Zach Levine and Laurie Markkinen specifically, because these have been the two guys that everybody's viewed as the potential foundational pieces to build around. And Zach Levine accelerated. I believe I shared something to you guys on Twitter earlier today. Zach Levine has reached career highs in just about every category. And I'll see if I could pull that back up here in a second. But he had a career year while Laurie Markkinen has essentially continued to just fall and sink deeper and deeper into the depths of the ocean. So it's clear cut. It's not a team Laurie Markkinen's not who we're building around. It's Zach Levine, and then getting Nikola Vucevic was huge. We dumped off some guys we didn't need anymore. We brought him in. We're going to have him long term now. I hope they re-sign Daniel Tice from. I don't know why the Celtics got rid of him. I know he doesn't do a whole lot, but what he does well is defense and being a physical force in the paint and being able to grab rebounds. He was fantastic. Again, maybe he doesn't put up flashy numbers, but if you sit down and watch a Bulls game and Daniel Tice is on the court, you're seeing somebody that's physical and is a boost to a bad defensive team, really, in terms of rebounding and just being physical and not getting bullied in the paint by some of the bigger, stronger players in the league today. And I found those Zach Levine stats. After completing his seventh season, it was his first All-Star selection, a career high in points per game, a career high in rebounds per game, career high in assists per game, career high in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and free throw percentage. So this is the guy you build around. I mean, the numbers he put up this year are superstar level numbers, to be quite honest with you. I know that's a debate for another day on just how good Zach Levine is. I feel like it reminds me of the days when we were trying to determine and debate in Chicago just how good is Jimmy Butler. Is he a star player? Is he a superstar player? I kind of feel like Zach Levine is growing into the kind of player Jimmy Butler is, where Jimmy Butler is really good, but is Jimmy Butler able to single-handedly lead a team to the playoffs and lead a team to the finals? Yeah, he did last year, but they kind of came down from earth, and maybe just maybe Miami just ended up being one of the hotter teams in the bubble when they came back to play in the middle of the pandemic last summer. So that could very well be how things went down. But really, what you have to do, okay, so you have your foundational pieces in Levine and Vucevic. They need to retool the bench because they don't really have a great bench. They have to get another guy, maybe another point guard. Kobe White, I'm not totally certain he's the starting point guard of this team just yet. The Bulls have always been linked to Lonzo Ball. I would entertain a trade for Lonzo Ball because I am fine with getting somebody that's a ball distributor and could get the ball to Levine and get the ball to Vucevic. Zach Levine has the ball in his hands too much, and that's why in some games defenses clamped down on him and kept him quiet because you couldn't put the ball in anybody else's hands. Then they trade for Vucevic. That kind of changes. Patrick Williams had a decent rookie year. It wasn't fantastic. He didn't turn a lot of heads, but he's still very young. He's like 19 or 20 years old. He got NBA experience this year. I expect and hope to see him get more growth next year, but it really comes down to what's your bench going to look like? They have to make a decision on, are they going to keep Thaddeus Young? Do they bring him back? He was solid, but he's older. And you have to think by time in a few years from now, when this team is hopefully out of the rebuild and are great and are contending for the playoffs every year again, Thaddeus Young might be too old at that point. So maybe you do move on from Thaddeus Young. You move on from Laurie Markkinen. I think they still have Thomas Satoransky for one more year. I could live with him. Denzel Valentine, please get that man off my team already. That guy does absolutely nothing. He was supposed to be a 3-point shooter. He's not. He could go focus on his rap career, which, trust me, isn't any better. If you want to go look up his rap videos and music videos on YouTube, it's not any better. So essentially, I think the trades that they did earlier this season help them get a baseline of what to build on this later this summer in the offseason. But it's really just the supporting cast now around Levine and Vucevic. Some people think that Kobe White might have to be involved in that trade for Lonzo Ball. I could live if they trade Kobe White, but I have no problem if he stays either. I just hope they get something great in return for Kobe White, because I think he's still only 2 seasons in. He's still got a lot of upside. He hasn't hit the ceiling yet, I don't think. So essentially, maybe you look for another point guard, and really just you got to round out that bench. You have to have a legit bench to come in here, because I'm not certain that Patrick Williams is going to be the starting small forward next year. So you might have to look into upgrading, get a decent name guy at the small forward position. And like I said, re-sign Daniel Tice. I'm cool if he's the starting power forward next year with Vucevic. Those two guys, they're like two twin towers in the paint. Not a whole lot gets by them. Those two guys alone can make the defense better. So resign a couple of guys, move on from Markkanen, move on from Denzel Valentine. See how much money you got. I know they're not going to be in play for a big time superstar, but at this point, I think if you could get a core bench, I mean, it kind of mirror what the 2011 Bulls did, where it was Derrick Rose's team and Carlos Boozer and Luol Deng. You had a solid starting five, but you had an even better, almost just as good as a bench. So you get a good bench mob, get a good supporting cast around these guys, and there's no reason. I truly think, I really thought this year they could contend for the playoffs. They kind of slipped up. Some things happened, but at the end of the day, I truly think this team should contend for the playoffs. I don't care if it's 8th seed, 7th seed, 6th seed, whatever. They should be contending in the East next year, because the East is just way too weak to continue to miss the playoffs at this point. Don't know what's going to happen with Indiana. Don't know what's going to happen with Boston and Washington. I'm just saying, when you have teams that are under 500 making the playoffs, I really don't see how the Bulls aren't a plus 500 team next year. So we'll see what happens. They have a lot of work to do, a lot of thinking to do this offseason, but they're in the best spot they've been in years. So I'm happy, and I'm excited to see what they could do.
And I mean, it's, yeah, you've made some very, very smart trades, interesting trades with Tice coming over from Boston, Vucevic from Orlando. I mean, providing, Levine, who who's the guy, like you mentioned, to build around there, heading into next season, and focus into next season. So, you know, hope that the Bulls are able to you know contend for the playoffs. I know my Cavs as well, eliminated early on. We Cavs didn't really have a chance, either way this year towards the end of the season. So hopefully both of our teams can get a little better, heading into next season, in the 2021-2022 season itself. But getting back to this playoff, the NBA playoffs, and the first round of the playoffs. I know the play-in tournament is on Tuesday, and then the first round starts on the 22nd, if I'm not mistaken, May 22nd. And you have, in the West, you have the Clippers and the Mavericks, Denver and Portland, currently, that are set in the first round. And then on the Eastern Conference side, you have the Knicks, the 4 seed, Atlanta, the 5 seed, and then Milwaukee and Miami, who are currently all set. So when you look at those matchups, which are the most intriguing matchups to you? Kind of just give your overall thoughts on those matchups in that first round of these playoffs.
Well, I'll start with the East, and I'll say this. I think that Knicks Atlanta series is going to be pretty tight, not just because their records are identical, 41 and 31, but you have Atlanta, who's probably got the more exciting offense, but then you have the Knicks that are run by Tom Thibodeau, and he means business when it comes to defense. And even though there's not a lot of great star power in terms of offensive ability. Julius Randle, Derrick Rose, some of those guys are doing enough to score points. I think Atlanta's got the more dynamic offense, though. When you think about it, with Trae Young, who could score in many different ways, including shooting the deep ball, the three ball. That's a tough series to pick. I think maybe I'll go with honestly, I think I'm going to go with the Knicks. I think Atlanta's just been too wishy-washy this year. Yes, they may be the favorite because they have the more dynamic offense, but Tom Thibodeau, look, if you could have a stingy defense and you find a way to take Trae Young out of a game, or you find a way to at least limit some of their strengths, I think the Knicks have a great chance. Derrick Rose, uh, as long as he stays healthy, he's a reliable guy. He could score. He's not the Derrick Rose we all would have expected him to still be at this point in his career, but he's been able to bounce back nicely. Julius Randle is having a career year. They have great momentum. And this is something Codey can attest to here in a minute or two when he gets to his thoughts. But Nate McMillan, okay, he's done a great job in helping Atlanta bounce back, but can he coach in the playoffs? I'll leave that for Codey, and I think that is a question mark. Tom Thibodeau, when he's been in the playoffs, it's been pretty good. He had to face shocking injuries with Derrick Rose and really just running into LeBron James and the big three with Miami, and then what he had going on in Cleveland with the Cleveland big three. So, the Bulls ran into a couple of brick walls that aren't necessarily Thibodeau's fault, at least in my opinion. You look at the other matchup that we know for certain, Milwaukee and Miami. I'm taking Milwaukee. I think uh, Milwaukee's destined for another deep run in the playoffs. Miami, I think they're just still too wishy-washy. I know they're well coached. I know they are in a better spot now than they were early on in the season, but I just think the supporting cast of Milwaukee, the depth they have, is performing a lot better than what Miami's getting, because outside of, Bam Adebayo, and outside of, Jimmy Butler, who's stepping up, Tyler Hero, you haven't heard too much about him. Duncan Robinson, sometimes has a great flashy game, sometimes he doesn't. So I think there's just too many question marks and a lack of consistency with Miami that might keep them from making a deep run and really going far and toe to toe with Milwaukee. Philly, they're going to be playing the 8th seed. I just say quickly my thoughts. Again, the stock of the Pacers just keeps going down, and I'm worried about their defense too, like Codey mentioned. Charlotte, they got ball back. They're maybe a little bit more exciting to watch on offense. I think I'm going to take Charlotte in the play-in tournament. In terms of the 7 and 8 seeds with Boston and Washington, Washington's probably hotter right now, but Jason Tatum single-handedly alone, when he gets hot and goes off for one of his 40-point games or more, uh, can dominate well enough and be clutch enough to win a game single-handedly for his team. And I'm going to take that over the once in a while good play of Westbrook and Bradley Beal. We've seen how many times that dude could score 30 or 40 points, and it hardly translates into wins for Washington. So I'm still going to take Boston, even though they've been having a very up and down, an up and down season. Taking a look at the West, the matchups we know right now, the 4 and 5 matchup of the Clippers and Dallas, that's going to be great. The Clippers, this is a tough challenge for them to have to take on Luka Doncic and the Mavericks. Luka needs to kind of calm down and not get technicals and not get kicked out of games. Luka, as on a couple of occasions, have had some really bad and quiet games this year, and I'm a little bit worried. For as dominant as he is, I'm worried that when it comes to when the stage is the biggest and the spotlights are the brightest, is he going to be able to handle this? And I think honestly, the Clippers, the fact that they have more star power, I think they have a better supporting cast, more veterans, guys that have been there and done that. I'm going to take the Lakers. I think the Mavs need to get a partner for Luka, and then I think they could really be destined to potentially take off. But I think there's just too much firepower and too much stardom that the Clippers have. And I know, Paul George is Paul George when it comes to the playoffs, but again, he's got Kawhi Leonard, who helped Toronto, make it to the promised land a couple of years ago. They should be able to do this, I think. Then when you look at the Nuggets and Portland, Denver's had a couple of some tough injuries, but they've also acquired and had some great depth, and some of their players that they've that they've developed over years. Michael Porter Jr. They have Aaron Gordon, who again more of a depth player at this point, but still can provide some offense, still can provide some playmaking abilities. Portland, yes, they're the 6th seed, but this is a team that one of the best, guard combos in the league. They have Nurkic. That's going to be another great big man battle between Nurkic and Jokic. Again, Jokic is kind of, I think, leading the charge and trying to, drag the rest of the Nuggets team with them since they lost Murray. Portland, again, I think because of the front court and then the dominance in the back court with Nurkic, I might actually be pulling for a Portland upset here of the Nuggets. The Nuggets are really good, but again, sometimes you can have a great season, but when it comes to playing a potential 7-game series against the same opponents, you have to look at those key matchups and okay, they're going to be facing off against each other numerous times. I think Portland has enough ways to attack Denver that Denver is going to have a hard time, figuring out defensively how they're going to handle so many guys that have star power on the court. I think Portland could handle that if they could play good defense. And we know that they have some guys that have made clutch shots in the past. Looking at their play-in tournament, okay, so in the West, you have Memphis and the Spurs. That's such a toss-up. I think I'm going to go Memphis because Ja Morant has been playing pretty well. I just, it's kind of a, Popovich is kind of keeping the Spurs alive, I guess, somehow, but I just don't think they have enough to match up with. That series is going to be close, but I'll take Memphis. I think probably one of the most exciting, honestly, I think I'm most excited for this matchup in the West, and that's the Lakers and Golden State, because you have Steph Curry that just won the scoring title. You have, of course, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You have the defending champs facing off against each other, and these guys, again, LeBron and Curry, they faced off against each other in the finals, a handful of times. Now they're facing each other to move on in the playoffs. This may be the most exciting matchup I'll consider the play-in tournament still part of the first round, for just the sake of the previewing here. So with that series, I'm going to go with the Lakers because, look, Anthony Davis and LeBron James alone, they're dominant players, of course. Golden State, they've been too up and down all season, and quite honestly, they need somebody other than Steph Curry to score the points. As great as it is that Steph Curry was the scoring leader, he had to do everything for this team this year. Sometimes Wiggins would show up, Kelly Oubre would show up sometimes, but Draymond Green's going to have his handful. He's got to defend and play great defense against Anthony Davis in the paint. And then you got LeBron that's going to be working him in the paint. I don't know if the rest of Golden State's defense is going to be able to step up and help Draymond, who's going to have to guard two, guys that are very physical and very talented in the paint. So, Draymond's going to have his handful. So I'm going to say that the Lakers win that matchup, but that's going to be fun. That's going to be one of my most favorite matchups to watch in the entire playoff bracket here, and specifically in the West. It's almost a shame it's part of the play-in tournament and not something that we get later on and deeper into the playoffs. But it should be fun because it really is a toss-up this year, guys. I know the play-in tournament maybe is not the funnest thing, but I think this is the first time in a couple of years, at least, where it's not a guarantee that the number 1 or number 2 seeds are going to go far, that they're going to, meet up in the finals. This is a year of uncertainty, which I think is just better for the league in general. So I'm excited to see this journey begin here soon.
Yeah, and I'll make my kind of picks pretty darn quick. Knicks, Hawks. Will, you said it. I absolutely have 0, double zeros, exclamation point, bold, 50-point Times New Roman font, confidence in Nate McMillan in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, for the love of God, the dude's 1-13 in his career. He's gotten swept 3 times, and we've taken, 3-13, excuse me. We took LeBron to in Game 7 1 year with Cleveland, but it was, I have 0 faith in Nate McMillan. None. I can't make that more clear. I think the Knicks, with Julius Randle, with Derrick Rose, with Tom Thibodeau. I mean, he's up there for Coach of the Year. I know we discussed our award winners last week. So I got the Knicks pulling out. I'm not saying that I think Nate McMillan will get a few in here, but because he's got Trae Young, Bogdanovich, and a Clint Capella too. So I think they'll get a few, but give me the Knicks. I think Tom Thibodeau has transformed the Knicks and brought them back to life. So I think it's gonna be a very competitive series, but I'm taking the New York Knicks in that one. Bucks Heat. You had your flash in the pan last year. I'm sorry. It's not, you're not as good as you were last year, but you basically brought everyone back. I know a lot of people were saying, oh, the Heat can be a favorite. Not really. I mean, they got good players: Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Goran Dragic, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero. Those guys are good, but they're not a team. They have great players. I don't think they play great team basketball. So I'm gonna have the Bucks, although it would not surprise me one bit if the Heat win. I'll say the Bucks win this one in 6. I could see the Heat getting a few games. No one thought they would get where they were last year in the finals. I already gave my thoughts on the Pacers. I think they win the first one, the first play-in, and then they probably lose the second game of the play-in, so that would make them fall to the 8th. Then they obviously break out the brooms, annual Pacers tradition of getting swept in the postseason. So Philly would win that one. Then I'd probably have Boston against the Nets. Brooklyn, it sounded like they're going to get all 3 guys back. I think they make quick work of Boston. I could see Boston maybe getting a game, Jason Tatum willing them to a game, maybe 2 at best. But Brooklyn would have a pretty solid time with Boston and take care of them pretty quick. I'm going to go with next is the Clippers and Mavs. And I've been trying to keep up with the Kristaps Porzingis injury. I know he is always hurt, unfortunately. If he is healthy for this series, the Mavs could potentially win it. I'm not saying they're going to, and I'm not going to pick them to. Way off P is what he is called in the playoffs, because that's not what I called him. I think that was a Shaq or Charles Barkley thing that they said on Inside the NBA last year. So I just don't trust the Mavs as a whole to get it done. I trust Kawhi Leonard to lead the Clippers, not way off P. For those who don't know who I'm talking about, obviously I'm talking about Paul George. I can throw slander at any former Pacer because it's just the way he exited. But I'll still take the Clippers. Paul George is as much as I hate on him, he's a good player. He's a great defender, and he can show up for a decent. If you need him to show up for a game or 2, he can do that. And Kawhi Leonard will kind of be that constant factor for the Clippers. So take the Clippers in that one. Will, I'm with you with the Denver and Trailblazers. Damian Lillard is CJ McCollum, arguably the best backcourt in the NBA. You can make an argument Devin Booker, Chris Paul. There's a few other guys as well, but Carmelo Anthony too, Yusuf Nurkic. The Blazers are due, I think, to kind of get past their playoff struggles a little bit. Terry Stotts' job, from what I hear, could be on the line here, especially if they get bounced in the first round. So I'm taking Dame over Will Barton is also out for a significant amount of time. Last time I heard, I have him in fantasy basketball, so that kind of hurt me. I don't know. I haven't heard if when he's supposed to be back. Jamal Murray obviously still hurt, so they're Dame and CJ McCollum will just take advantage of the injury-riddled Nuggets and kind of win that series. moving on to the play-in real quick. I got Memphis. Greg Popovich, I don't think is going to take the play-in, no offense, very seriously. He probably thinks it's a joke. He probably thinks his team shouldn't be in. And John Moran and the young Grizzlies are, just trying to get some playoff experience. So I think they'll win that one. Then how ironic, we've been talking. How ironic that LeBron James just happened to open his mouth about the play-in, and look where his Lakers are right now. It's so ironic, ain't it? And of course, he has to go up against the hottest player probably in the history of basketball when he gets hot, and who won the scoring title, and who has been on fire probably the past month and a half. And Steph Curry, excuse me. I'm taking the Warriors. I don't see. Look, Steph doesn't. He's been getting solid production from guys like Andrew Wiggins. Draymond can score when relied upon. Jordan Poole off the bench. So there's something about the way Steph Curry's playing right now. I don't trust the Lakers. I don't know what it is. It's not that I don't trust the Lakers. It's just that the way that they said, "Oh, I don't want to play in the play-in," and then the ways combined with the way Steph's playing, Steph. If this was a 7-game series, I'd take the Lakers, but this is a 1-game type of scenario, and give me Steph Curry. Give me Steph Curry over Anthony Davis, over LeBron James, who, by the way, tweaked his ankle again. Sunday, apparently, I think he's fine still, but is Dennis Schroeder going to be there? Who is going to guard Steph Curry for the Lakers? Absolutely nobody. And I think the Warriors could hopefully pull away in that one. So those are my picks for playoffs, and it's going to be fun. It really is going to be fun. It's hard to believe that's kind of here already. It seems like yesterday we were just talking about the season being over, but hey, I mean, it's playoff basketball here, and it's going to be a fun next probably, I'd say month and a half as we gear up to crown an NBA champion.
Fun is an understatement. It's going to be exciting to see the NBA playoffs underway, and my picks are very, very similar to yours, Cody and Will. I think I've got the Knicks going in from the East, the Knicks and the Bucks winning those two matchups we know currently. Although one tidbit speaking of the Miami Heat, there, Victor Oladipo season-ending knee surgery he'll have.
Oh, unfortunate.
Not
to get sympathy from me.
Yeah, just a fact about he's
Miami. Played 4 games with the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
He has played 4 games with Miami Heat this
year. Yeah.
He got what he wanted, and he got hurt again.
Yeah.
And I know we're trying to wrap up, but there's also reports that he may miss the entire season next year.
Yeah, that's what I saw as well. Yeah.
So, did you really get what you wanted, Vic? But yes, the answer is probably yes, but what did it cost you?
Yeah.
All I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like you said, he got what he wanted, but at what price? That's what you gotta think about. What there.
Cost?
Yeah.
Is that from the Marvel movies?
Yeah.
Thanos.
The Clippers in Dallas in the West. Very, very intriguing series there. You mentioned Paul George, his nickname way off P there, but I think, like you said, it all depends on health, player health, specifically Kristaps Porzingis. There, you mentioned him and Luka. I think could together be able to. And
if Luka gets, I think, one more technical, I think he's suspended a game.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I know Will mentioned
he's a little feisty this year.
He's just gotta calm down, dude. Calm down.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're gonna cost. You don't want to be the you don't want to be a detriment to your team. And that's
It's like the new
what he's
version of
done.
DeMarcus Cousins.
Oh yeah. That's true. That's true. I remember when DeMarcus used to get a ton of technicals. But that'll be a interesting series. Denver, Portland. Cody, you know this. Our senior year at Ball State, we were watching a couple of Dame's games, and him late game. Yeah, it's
It's
Dame
Dame
time,
time.
man. So I think I can't ever bet against, like in football. Now I've learned I can't bet against Tom Brady in the NBA. I can't really bet against Damian Lillard. I think it's just there's just too much talent there on this Portland roster. Will, you mentioned one of the best backcourts in the country there, in the league, and I think the guy. I'll be honest with you, the guy that the play-in tournaments. My predictions are the same as you guys. But the guy that I'm really looking forward to watching, or the team that I'm really looking forward to watching this playoffs, the Phoenix Suns. I know we've touched on this a couple times last week and the week before. Uh, Chris Paul, I think, deserves an NBA Finals ring, and just Devin. I mean, Devin Booker. I want to see. That's the guy that I want to see in the playoffs. Just he's been phenomenal throughout the regular season in his years in 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 Phoenix, but they haven't really had a chance to prove themselves in meaningful times like the playoffs. So good to see the Phoenix Suns with that 2 seed, and excited to see what how Devin Booker, excited to watch Devin Booker, play. I'm lost for words here. Devin Booker play in these playoffs. But as the playoffs begin this weekend, actually, they had the Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony in Connecticut. Pop, but we spoke the past question about Pop not really caring about the play-in tournament as much for the Spurs. He actually skipped the Spurs game on Saturday to fly to Connecticut to attend the ceremony and support Tim Duncan, who he won multiple championships with the Spurs. So I just wanted to get your thoughts. I know that was Kobe Bryant's wife gave a speech, a really passionate speech on behalf of Kobe Bryant being in the Hall of Fame there. And then you had KG as well in the Hall of Fame there, enshrined there. So just wanted to get your overall thoughts on kind of your overall reactions to the ceremony and the Hall of Fame enshrinements.
Yeah, well, first off, congrats to all these people. There's an even longer list of people that were inducted, but I know really for us, the people we know specifically would be Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, and Tim Duncan. And I think this is really special for even people like us as fans. These were some of the big names we grew up when we started watching the NBA, was watching Kobe play, being the greatest player after Jordan and before LeBron. Kevin Garnett was great in obviously Boston and Minnesota, even had a few interesting years there with Brooklyn. Tim Duncan, also another great player, one of the greatest to ever play. One it also ranks up there as one of the guys that has multiple rings. So the fact that all these guys are in the same class together is great. It's a little bittersweet because Kobe should have been there to accept his reward. He should have been there to inspire us all with another great speech and just truly live in the moment of everything he accomplished. That's the final chapter of his NBA career is to get into the Hall of Fame. But his wife Vanessa had a fantastic speech. Everybody had a lot of great things to say in their speeches, of course, including Kobe in that too. This is a legendary Hall of Fame class. And yes, Vanessa Bryant, she continues to be a strong person when it comes to talking about Kobe and continuing that legacy, which I can't imagine it gets any easier, even though the days go by and by. But again, it's kind of like a gut punch. It's like you're celebrating the Hall of Fame here, you're celebrating these guys, and then you're like, damn, Kobe's not here. So it was a little bittersweet, but happy that he got the honor he deserved. Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, really enjoyed watching those guys play as well. So I mean, this is a special time for even people like the three of us here, because being fans of the NBA, we were young fans, growing into learning about the NBA and growing into becoming basketball fans during the era of dominance that these three guys played in and performed and entertained. And really, I'm sure you guys would agree, at least with one or two of these guys. These guys really were part of the reason why I got so invested and fell in love with the NBA, especially Kobe, just the way he played. And again, being the greatest player at that time in his era was just great. So great to see them finally get honored. A little bittersweet, but again, everybody keeps moving on. Everybody perseveres, keeps going. And this is probably the most attached I've been to an NBA Hall of Fame class, because it really hits, because these are, again, guys we grew up watching and guys that helped us get involved with watching the sport, liking the sport, and also overall, covering it and talking about it in the media today. So, yeah, it was awesome.
Just to add to Kobe Bryant's legacy and whatnot, I saw this while I was scrolling through Twitter. It was something that Vanessa Bryant shared during her speech when talking about Kobe. It was just, she always asked, like, why the hell did Kobe continually play when he was, had a broken finger, or you name the injury that Kobe Bryant had, he played through it. Except, the torn Achilles, he shot 2 free throws, so that's playing through it a little bit, but couldn't play obviously as much as he wanted. But she asked him, why'd you play so many games while you were hurt all of a sudden? Well, you were always hurt. Then his response is, it's classic Kobe. He's like, well, what about those fans that saved up all their hard money just to see me play one time? I mean, if that's not the most Kobe Bryant answer to a question, I don't know what is. But Will, you're right. It was also very interesting. We've gotten to hear Tim Duncan speak now. I mean, you talk about one of the most quiet, dominant players of all time, the big fundamental. He's up there. I mean, Tim Duncan, I don't think during his career, I don't think I heard Tim Duncan speak a word. And now to kind of hear him at his Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony, and also, it's weird seeing his hair grow out. It's just kind of, we were used to just seeing him with the, basically straight up buzz cut, and now his personality's starting to grow out a little bit. And that's always nice to see from Tim Duncan. Then obviously KG, you talk about a dude who gave it 110% night in, night out. It didn't matter if he was up 30, down 30. Also, you could throw out there one of the best trash talkers to ever play. I mean, it was the big ticket. It was KG's name. So you paid a ticket to watch Kevin Garnett play. And he would smack talk your favorite player to death. And he'd intimidate people. I remember his famous celebration was headbutting the stanchion before games. That would intimidate the hell out of me if I saw that. Like, what the hell is this crazy dude doing? And so, I mean, all three of these guys, I mean, obviously, like you said, there was a lot more that were honored. But these were the three that were kind of headlined the class. All of them deserved it. I mean, I'm so happy that Kobe got in. They made that exception. Like you said, wish he was there to actually do it. But Vanessa and his daughters, will do a tremendous job of carrying on his legacy, and they did a phenomenal, speech as well. So it was fun watching all three of these guys kind of, like you said, they kind of defined our generation of basketball, and to kind of see them get their day in the Hall of Fame was very fun to see. And, and just I'll end it with, Kobe, we always think about you. I mean, Kobe Bryant was my first jersey. Um, always will be. Kind of, we know where we were that day when it happened. So very special day, very emotional day, and all three more than well deserve to belong and enshrined forever in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about the impact that these guys had on our generation, Cody, and Kobe Bryant was kind of like the Michael Jordan of our generation. Never got to really see Michael. When I started watching basketball, by the time I started watching basketball, I never really got to see Michael play like live. I only used to see clips of him on YouTube, but Kobe Bryant was kind of that guy that I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of like the Michael Jordan of our generation there. And what a great honor to be honored in the Hall of Fame there, enshrined. And you talk about his wife asking him why he plays through all these injuries, and he's doing it for his fans. And it makes me think of like today's game, where you have all these load management scenarios where it's like, oh well, I'm gonna sit out, or LeBron, even LeBron with the Lakers, like sitting out, soreness on a back to. I mean, there's fans that think about if think about if I don't know, Brady sat out in the NFL, the Bucks Patriots game, and you say you paid $1,400 to go watch Tom Brady play, and he sits out. That's, you don't want to. That's thinking from a fan's perspective, and Kobe Bryant always delivered for his fans there, and so that's kind of that's what made Kobe Bryant special, but that's what made all three of those guys a headline this class. You mentioned Kevin Garnett won a title in Boston in 2008. And you mentioned Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, the trio in San Antonio for so many years. Phenomenal, won multiple championships with Greg Popovich as well in San Antonio. But all these guys deserve to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. And it's like, I think the quote that Kobe's wife gave in a speech is, "You're not just an MVP, you're an all-time great," to Kobe now. So, hats off to all these guys. They deserve it. And really, really great moment to watch to unify everybody in the sport of basketball. But with that being said, we want to thank you for listening to Beyond the Press Box. To stay up to date on content, to even join the debate, like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search Beyond the Press Box and look for our cool red logo. To listen to more great episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We have video versions of our podcast on there as well. We're also a proud member of the Unhinged Sports Network, so make sure to head over to unhingedsn.com to listen to our podcast and many other great podcasts as well. But that's all the time we have for this edition of Beyond the Press Box. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great rest of your week.